All right, cool. Nice. I'm gonna turn the camera so everybody can see. Get a little closer.
I can get,
there you go.
I can move.
All right.
Don't move the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know if you wanted them to see my drinking coffee at 12:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's like your fifth cup.
I have a little coffee problem. I don't know.
It's getting out of hand. It's all right. I'll just use my nerves to ramp me up, and you can use your coffee.
That's it.
Since you're always cool as a frickin' cucumber. Must be all the lucid dreaming, I think.
It's got to be that. It's got to be that.
Conquering your fears and like, it's like this is no big deal to you.
No, because when you don't deal with,
you don't
like,
care at all.
It's just like, okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that. So, hey everybody, and welcome to today's broadcast. So today we're going to be talking about lucid dreaming, and so we've just kicked off our lucid dreaming program, and it's going to be a step-by-step coaching program to get myself as well as everybody else up to speed with these lofty lucid dreaming goals that we have. And of course, the first goal for the program is to be able to lucid dream consistently once a week.
Right.
And there we'll just be focusing on like fun and adventure and
Absolutely.
whipping it up in the lucid dreaming state.
You have to. I mean, it's like no matter how serious somebody is, nobody has that kind of discipline if they've not if they've not engaged at this point. There's no way.
Even the idea of discipline is kind of weird when it comes to lucid dreaming, I think. But when we get into talking about the second stage of this program, which we will be, we're talking more about the idea of the control to be able to enter that lucid dreaming state any night that we choose, and the ability to stay there for as long as we choose as well. And then this third stage of the program is going to be what do we actually do when we have so much control that we can stay there as long as we want, and what do we do? How can we benefit from the aspects of ourselves that we can.
Rather than just the enjoyment of actually being there and engaging the adventure.
I mean, I think that's one thing that separates everything that you do, and you were talking about that before you get on the call. It's like that you're, how practical you are about all this stuff and how you want to put it to use. And so...
Yeah, because people laugh when you use those words together, right? It's like lucid dreaming and practicality. It's kind of like, what are you talking about? It's like, how could that possibly be practical?
Right.
But, there is I have a good size utilitarian streak in me, right? So things have to be useful or else. I mean, and it can be useful just to, imagine if you could get in one day a week and imagine, that you could stay in there for a length of time where you're just having an adventure, which is like a vacation, but, no limitations, more or less. Right, so it's like that excitement can carry over into your regular waking state, right, where you just feel good. I mean, it's sort of like you go on vacation, and if you're not one of those people that just laments for a week about coming back to work, and you come back and you had a great vacation, and you're just telling everybody how great your vacation was, and you just feel good, and for hopefully more than just a few weeks, you're still reminiscing, and that good feeling, and the restfulness and all of that sort of like bleeds into the rest of your life, right? It's like your family, your workouts, your health, just every aspect, your work life, right? And
so let's get a little deeper into that, because the purpose of this call is, last week for the members of our program, we set everybody up with a handful of exercises that they've been doing and I've been doing as well. And one of the major purposes of this call is for me to share some of my experience with those exercises and for us to tweak them a little bit and make them even better. And so I'm just going to give you guys a bird's eye view of the exercises that we've done just as a recap. But we've done this self-inquiry exercise of what do you want, why do you want it.
Right.
We've done a specific exercise that's intended to elucidate some of the unconscious fears that we have about lucid dreaming, or what that experience would be like, or all that. Not just what it would be like, but how it would affect us. I mean, that's way deep.
Right.
And then an exercise that we use to burn those things off once we discover what they are. We've also been working on dream recall, and these are all, just foundational things. I mean, this is just week 1 of what's going to turn out to be a very extensive program. So,
Right.
So when I was doing the first exercise of what do you want and why do you want it, one of the things that came up for me was wanting to have more confidence in the decisions that I make in my life. And, and on top of that, also wanting to have a better understanding or a better feeling of an understanding of, like, I don't know, not just reality, but life itself, so that I can navigate it in an optimal way for myself. And so do you think that lucid dreaming is actually an avenue for that?
Oh, I think it's an avenue for a lot of things, so it's, but that's pretty deep. I mean,
Right.
A lot of people, aren't going to go to that territory, alongside of you, right? Because you're basically saying, what's the meaning of life and where's my place in that picture?
Right. I mean, I know that's like
No, that's a big one, right?
It is. But but to the point of being, like, practical, it's like we all, read books that inspire us or follow teachers that inspire us,
Right.
and we all are presented with these different ideas of, like, frameworks for, how to make our lives great, or how we should think about things.
Sure.
And so those are all just ideas, but oftentimes those ideas compete with each other, and then we try to balance those with our actual life experience. And so it's like, how does that all, I don't know.
How does it all weave together?
Yeah.
Well, I think with lucid dreaming, one of the best parts is, and I'll give you my take on it, and then I'll play devil's advocate to myself, right? So, like, I think that, when you have a handle on it, I mean, even, let's say you're out of that phase where you're just having fun. You're just, whatever comes, right? And you're just out of it. I mean, it's like, you get to that point where you're doing a little bit more work, and you've got some elements of control, and you've got it down, right? Because initially when you get in, it's not going to be something you direct, right? You're just going to pop in someplace. You're going to wake up within a dream. You're going to realize that you're dreaming, and then you're going to go off on an adventure, right? Or something will happen, and you're going to be amazed that you're conscious within a dream, and that's pretty cool. And just in and of itself, that's pretty fantastic, really. And plenty of people have had that spontaneously, right? And I mean, forever, right? A lot of people have done it, but to actually promote the ability and build it up in yourself and work through it to the point where you have, access to it on a regular basis, and a certain amount of control there that can grow with time and effort, right? So there's a discipline to it. One of the aspects of that, directly related to what you asked, is, a lot of times when we do these things, right? When we, set up these goals for our lives in our, everyday affairs, and we think through the process, right, of how we're going to approach them. I want to have more confidence in this, but I'm not sure what's going to happen, and all of that. It's hard for us, other than a mental gymnastics of actually running through, those. Here's how I want it to go, right?
What are the potential
What
scenarios?
are the potential
How's this gonna
scenarios
play out?
from really, really bad, which can damage you, as well as really, really good, and it doesn't turn out that way, right? So both things are not so great, but so. In a lucid dream, you're basically able to, once you have that control, you're able to run that scenario, like going in to ask the boss for a raise. You run the scenario over and over again, so that it's almost like psychology, conditioning of a phobia, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you go step by step versus just, you do entering his office 20 times and, being turned down, and then feeling like, oh, it's not a big deal. And by the time you find out it's not a big deal, and then, what if I tweak this and ask in this way, what's the response going to be? And, all of these things. Now, it's a way to sort of do that, and again, sort of desensitize yourself to the actual event regardless of which way it goes, right? I mean, you're always going to try to put it in the context of something positive happening to you, and that's why you change it. It's sort of like the Groundhog Day thing, right? If this doesn't work, what if I approach it this way? What if I approach it this way? And you just keep getting shot down until you finally find that one avenue that may have the positive effect that you're looking for. But regardless, you've gone through it so many times that it's not nearly the trauma when you go to do it for real, right? And of course, you always want to check it out. You don't want to, the last thing I want somebody to do is...
I guess somebody's argument would be like, why would I expect the things that happen as a response to my actions in a lucid dream have anything to do with my waking life?
Right. I mean, and my response would be, you'd have to check that out that's why we check out whatever we get for information in there.
Right. Like how people respond.
All of that, right? So I'm not just starting off with like asking the boss for a raise, right? I'm using smaller increments and building up to that. So I know, I start to correlate, I'm not going to say it's a causation, right? But there's a correlation between what I do and how I approach things. Now, I could, play the other side of it just like you did. And my answer to that would be, what if just running that scenario 30, 40, 50 times? You have to sleep anyway, right? And maybe you can do multiple times in the same evening, right? Once you have that kind of control, you can go through that over and over and over again. So what if running that just builds up your confidence to be able to do that you just hold yourself differently when you walk in there, you speak differently, you have no preconceived idea really of getting it or not getting it, and the raise, and but the interaction is going to be on a level that you wouldn't have had before if it was completely unknown what's going to happen when you touch that doorknob and then go into the office and confront your boss, right? So it takes a piece of that unknown out of the equation because you've done it so many times, regardless if it's going to track exactly the way it does in your lucid dream. It's like you've been through the scenario with the feelings, because we have everything that we have here, right? We have our feelings, all the senses, all of that, they're just very heightened, right? So our feelings are heightened as well when we go through that. So, in doing that, we just sort of desensitize ourselves. And isn't that alone, still, I mean, so the denial isn't crushing. From that and from my position, my more secure position in my mind.
Denial of what?
Denial of the raise, if that's what you're going for.
If
that's what it happens, right? You walk out of there with more confidence, you walk out knowing that you did your best, and you probably now, because of the way you're acting, you probably have a backup plan. Like, okay, I'm going to start looking for another job, or I'm going to look for another position, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. You're not just going like, and crawling into a bottle later, thinking that, that, oh, woe is me, I didn't get the raise I asked for. Right. So, it gives you a different attitude. And so isn't that, even if nothing else, isn't that worth it? I mean, we've all been in situations where it makes us very uncomfortable. And most of that discomfort comes from moving into something that you don't know, right? It's walking into the unknown and not knowing what the repercussions of that are going to be.
Right.
And so that makes us uncomfortable because we like, familiar things, right? Family, familial things, right? And so that's the known to us. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, and I know what the range of outcomes is going to be, but I know that also, my family's probably not going to kick me out of the house for that, or depending, whatever it is, right? So, but it's known, you have all these parameters that are known, but so the things that are uncomfortable for us, for the most part, are the things that are unknown. And the only point of reference you have in the unknown is yourself, right? You're the only reference point if you know yourself, right? So in doing that and doing these lucid dreams and sort of putting yourself through that, through the paces there and getting to that level, you're expanding, your idea of walking into the unknown. You're making that unknown a little little, pushing it back farther because you're making it more known. Here's all these parameters that it could have been, instantly fired, instantly given a raise, promoted to the boss's job, like all the ridiculous ones and all the ones that are more likely to happen, right? And something in between. And so, but just going through it, it becomes, you've done it so many times that you become pretty neutral to it. Sort of like you make your best pitch. There's no nerves anymore. There's none of that.
So I think, what I'm taking away from this right now is like, regardless of whether you could have a dream that would give you the perfect answer, or meet some aspect of yourself that would just be like, yeah, you're doing great, don't worry about it, or here's the right answer to this problem, or here's what I think you should do. It's like,
say this word when he says this,
yeah,
and you'll instantly get what you want.
Right. That would be very cool.
That would be very cool. It doesn't happen very often.
Right. But I guess I feel like what you're saying is like, regardless of whether you get super clear answers that increase your confidence in your own decisions, it's like the more experience you have of playing out different scenarios, making different decisions, seeing how that stuff plays out, the more confidence you have like in yourself, that regardless of what happens from the situations in your life, you have confidence in yourself and your ability to just be like, yeah, I'm going to be good no matter what happens. Like,
yeah, because remember that in the lucid dream compared to a regular dream, or let's say running those scenarios in your mind, just your mind, running, maybe having some anxiety-driven dreams about the scenario beforehand, right? And then having a lucid dream where, you're actually running the scenarios on your own, right? Intentionally. In my mind, I can run, a bazillion configurations of that, right? So, and it's like, and none of them really hold much value, none of them hold much emotional value more than the others, right? There's not, you might get a little tweak here or there, right? Something really great and something really bad. But other than that, they're pretty neutral. And we all know the emotions are where the juice are. That's where your energy is. That's when energy somatizes in the body. It's a feeling, right? You get a visceral sensation. That's why we get butterflies in our stomach when we're excited or anxious about something, right? And people have that all over in different areas depending on the person. So, but that's when it's really like invested in your physical body. There's a lot of juice there, right? So, in just running the scenarios mentally, there's not a lot of that present. And so it's because
it's so fleeting.
It's just like a construct, it's like a contrived construct in your mind, and you know it. So no matter how much you try to put yourself in that place, it's very difficult. I'm not saying people can't do it. You can, but it's a lot of work to get to that place where you can do that and do it consistently too, right? So, in a regular dream, if they're anxiety driven, there's always going to be that edge of anxiety there. And they're going to be confused and a little dull, and like probably not even in linear sequence or whatever. Things are just going to be jumbled. And so you come out even more anxious than you did, right? And, that's not an emotion you really want to hold on to for any length of time. And, and probably not really thinking that there's any answers there for you, except making you even more anxious and burning up more of your reserves of energy before you even get to the scenario, right? Because we all know anxiety and worry, they're just basically emotionally empty calories, right? They don't really do anything except wear you down. And so there's nothing really good about them, right? So except giving you, maybe training yourself to act when you get that way instead of just, going inside and like holding on to it for dear life because it's something familiar again, right? So it's like act instead, and you'll be better off for that. So, and then there's a lucid dream where everything's hyper, right? It's like not only are you there and able to control it, but all your senses are heightened. So visually things are much more saturated. It's hyper real. Sound, all of the senses come online and are very, very, very strong and powerful, right? Well, because you're there with your conscious mind, that generates, kind of hypersensitivity emotionally too. Not like where you're weeping all the time or laughing hysterically all the time or whatever, but it's just like they're very, you feel them profoundly in your dream body, let's say. And so going through that scenario and having that hyper state and having that desensitize you. You know, when you go to do the real thing, it's going to be like you're turning the volume down on it a little bit, you know, emotionally. It's kind of like, I've done this 50 times. I'm going to put my best foot, you know, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to go and do that. You know, it's like, and you just go in with all the confidence, and you know, because you've rehearsed it and done it so many times, you have the answers to, you know, questions, and it's, you know, it's just, it's, you know, I think it's a much more beneficial way to do it. And that's just the scratching the surface, right? It's just what kind of practical benefit can we derive from this practice?
Right.
I think it's much more broad than that, but I'm just looking at the, you know, on the base level, you know, what can I do? The same thing, you know, pick a scenario for relationships, pick a scenario for your health, you know, pick a scenario for your spirituality, and, you know, put them all on that base level, and, you know, running through that over and over again and putting yourself in different scenarios, whatever, it tends to, you know, sort of take the sharp edges off the swords and spears that are here for us, you know. So, and I think that helps you to move through this life and with a lot more confidence. And isn't that better? You know, we all love to see confident people.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you want to be around them, right?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
let me go first. Or not stupid brave, you know, where it's like, you know, they're just running into danger and trying to fix every problem.
But centered.
Yeah, centered. Like I got this. And if I don't have it, I can spin out of it pretty easily too. You know, it's like, I may not know all of this, but I'm confident even in saying I don't know. And, you know, we look at those people, we really respect them, right? Because they have that sureness within themselves. You know, they're not using any reference point other than themselves.
Yeah.
And you can tell when people do that. You know, it's like they stand out. Mm-hmm. So what's the problem with that? Wouldn't we all want to be that? I mean, we don't admire people we don't like. We don't admire people that are not living up to their expectations or whatever, right? So it's, you know, why wouldn't you want to be that? You know, no matter what you do and no matter what areas of your life are good or bad or need work or whatever. I mean, you know, I feel like every area of my life, you know, can always use tweaking. Is constant, you know, constant adjustment and, you know, constantly trying to build them up and make it better. There's no resting point. I think that's one of those first things you learn is that, you know.
First things you learn how?
I think just in general, anybody who's trying to live, you know, I hate to use the word spiritual, but let's say, you know, a very well-rounded life, is that there's no rest. You don't, you know, you might have little plateaus where you can rest, you know, you have a nice weekend, everything's great, you know, but on Monday, you know, I'm working on my relationship, you know, no matter how good the weekend went, it's like, I'm not forgetting about it or taking it for granted or whatever, you know, I mean, we're constantly working on those things. We're constantly sharpening those, you know, the points on the pencil when it comes to looking at those things for ourselves. I know where my flaws are, and I'm always trying to diminish those, and I'm always trying to build up the good parts, right? And add them in if I don't have those, right? So, and make myself more well-rounded and make myself a better person that's more available for the other people that are around me, from, you know, my family, my friends, community, and at large, students, all of that. So, you know, you never stop learning. You never stop trying to, you know, better yourself. So, and I feel that this is one of those tools that's really, really, really good at doing that.
Yeah. So one of the other exercises that we did where we, you know, are observing our mind and we're asking ourselves these questions to find out, like, what is it about, you know, lucid dreaming that I'm afraid of, or that I might be afraid of, you know. And it's funny because in the beginning, when I first started training with you, like, I never would have thought of that as a thing, because I was like, I'm like so excited about it, you know. It's like, how could I be,
right?
Well, why would I be afraid of it? It's just cool, you know. It's
yeah.
awesome. It's
right.
exciting,
right?
You know? But yeah, as I'm doing it, I did it maybe 3 times this last week before the call, and you know, a lot of, you know, stuff just comes to the surface, and you're like, oh, geez, you know, like,
I'm gonna start writing these down.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna make a list. Wait a second.
Yeah, but one of the things that I also did was, I asked myself that question before I went to sleep.
Right.
One of these nights, and I had this dream where I'm in an approximation of my grandparents' old house, and I start to get this like funny feeling of like discomfort, and I'm like looking around, and then I see this like, she's my grandmother, she's not my grandmother,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I don't know, something's not right in this room, starting to feel really uncomfortable, and then I'm like, I gotta get out of here, and at that moment I become lucid. So, and then I'm like, oh, great, okay, I'm lucid, but no, how do I get out of here?
We're not aborting the mission. We're just choosing to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not unconsciously
I'm
reacting.
not afraid. I'm just choosing to leave now.
I just really would prefer to not be here right now. So, and I'm looking for the door, and I'm trying to get out. And instead of the door, there's this big mirror, right? And yeah. And I see myself in the mirror, but it's like a spooky version of me, like so like I'm not too excited about seeing, like very like nightmarish or whatever.
Right.
And it starts coming at me, and it like, mouth opens, and it's like eating me, and then I wake up.
Right.
And I'm like,
perfect.
Great job, Dustin. So
nice way to manifest your fears. Oh, I'm sorry. The fears you don't have.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, and one of the things that I was asking about earlier when we were kind of going over stuff a little bit. You were saying that one of the things that we can inherently be afraid of is like what we might find in our own subconscious.
Sure.
Whether it's aspects of ourselves or just experiences that may be there, and it's like there's all these positive aspects of lucid dreaming: the fun, the excitement, the hedonism, or whatever it is, the adventure, but there's always the chance, like, am I going to have a bad experience, or is this scary version of me going to eat me in a dream? Am I going to encounter whatever? So, and we've all had nightmares.
Sure.
So,
we're all still here for the most part.
Yeah, sure, but the visceral sensations of those things when we're there, and I don't know what they mean.
Well, it's the double-edged sword, right? I mean, we don't get to pick it. We're saying that all the senses are heightened, everything is stronger and more vivid and all of that. Well, you don't get to pick and choose. It's like, oh, this scenario is not to my liking. I'm feeling uncomfortable. Let me turn down the volume. Now, I say that, but later on you might be able to, but you probably won't. Because there's no need for you to do it anymore. That's one of those things that you wish you had that skill going in. It's like, oh, this is scary. Let me turn down the volume, or let me turn down the shades. Let's make it less intense. Let's go to 20% of what it is.
Yeah.
And and so experience it that way. So it's at a real arm's length, right? So like I'm watching it, but that's like a regular dream, right? You're like watching it from afar, and so. But let's say you don't do that. So so we go in and we have those experiences. I don't feel that those are that common from the people that I've talked to over the years.
What do you mean?
They're those sort of nightmarish, uncomfortable ones are not that common in the beginning. People are just once they become lucid, it's not like they're being dumped into a nightmare.
Right.
It's usually like they're so excited, so thrilled, and just wowed if they don't wake up immediately from that experience of just realizing it, which is very, very common, and then again, like I'm always joking, but I'm not joking, is like then you don't go to sleep for the rest of the night, right? Because you just like you're excited, it's a peak experience, but you're also agitated that you didn't get to stay there longer,
right? And
so it puts you in the worst possible scenario for going back to sleep, right? And then you say, oh, I'm going to go back to sleep because I'm going to get back in there, and it's like, nah, you're not doing that. You might as well just get up, have a cup of coffee like me, and and get on with your day.
Yeah.
But so I don't feel like in the beginning that a lot of people tell me, I mean, here and there, but not many people tell me that, oh, the first time they were lucid, they were dumped into some nightmarish scenario.
And I should clarify, like, that wasn't my first lucid dream ever.
Right.
And at the same time, like, one of the reasons that we're doing this program is because, it's not consistent for me.
Right.
And I want it to be. And, But it was interesting that even, starting to engage these exercises
Right.
and give it more thought, brought up, a lucid
Brought that up.
experience, even though it was one that was not so great.
Yeah, but
Or
at
not
the
so
same time, remember
nice
that
or
you're
whatever.
asking the questions. And so, like we said before,
Right.
there's one aspect of the subconscious that is really very consistent is that, when you ask yourself a question, an open-ended question like that, it's your subconscious goes crazy until it can give you an answer that's, that you'll understand, that you'll interpret correctly. Right? I mean, because the subconscious speaks in symbolism, right? It's never, very rarely ever literal, right? It's symbolic. So whenever you get that information, there's plenty of times, especially in the beginning, when you're doing dream work, right, that the symbolism is lost on you. So you're just thinking it's a kooky dream, and until you start to set up that dictionary with yourself, that lexicon of words and symbols, what it equates to, and you stick to that. That's really important. You don't want to, waver on that on a regular basis. You want to really stick to it. If the ocean means this, the ocean means that for you forever now. So that you have your subconscious is, working on a straight one-to-one level. It's not having to guess. Do you mean this time, or do you mean that this time? And do you, we want to narrow the parameters of our interpretation of what those things are, right? So I think that with regard to that, people when they get in and they hit these things, let's call them little hurdles, right? Like they have a scary experience or something like that. It's like you're still here. You still woke up in bed. Everything's fine. But the first few times you can get out and you actually realize it and you're able to stay out for an extended period of time, you're just going to do fun stuff. There is no disciplined person in the world that I ever heard of, including, anybody that I know that does this well, that hasn't just it was full on party for the next, X number of times and everybody varies on those times, right? Some people are still doing that. They've been doing it years, right? And that's their thing and they like it, and that's okay. But eventually, if you have loftier goals or whatever other goals, right, then you're going to ask yourself, what else can I do with this? And so that's when, those things like either more profound experiences or even, startling experiences will start to emerge or potentially emerge. Like you can run in the other direction, right? It's like, if you're like, oh, there's a house. I don't feel good going into that house, even though it's my house in the lucid dream, right? And so, you can choose to just go and walk down the street, right? Or fly away or do whatever, right? It's not like something's going to be chasing you to make you have that experience. But if you keep asking those questions, what am I afraid of or whatever, eventually a scenario will catch up to you, where you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to experience it and work your way through it too, right? So it's not like, I ate myself, so now I'm done. I don't have to do that anymore. It's like, no, you got to deal with it adequately for you. You need to resolve it, use any terms you want, bind it, do whatever, take it from a chaotic aspect of yourself and turn it into an ordered aspect of yourself, so that things are under control, right? And then you can utilize that energy. It's almost always that in the doing of that you realize, it's not just the superficial scariness of the scenario, right? It's like you're learning something, and that is revealed in the doing and resolving it adequately for yourself, no matter how you do that.
And that all takes place in the dream, in an embodied form, in that place.
Right. You may have a realization of what it might be like in your conscious day, where you're doing the other work, daytime meditations or whatever, doing observation of mind and asking yourself these questions. What does that mean? Or, even in a regular dream, right? Like say you're on a night off where you're not doing an induction, right? So you just go to sleep. Mm-hmm. But one of those practices that we get consistent with is asking yourself a question in regards to anything, and knowing that whatever normal dream material that comes up, it's directly answering that question. Like you've narrowed it down to just this, just this question. Everything, you're telling your subconscious, here's my question. Anything that you feed me tonight is I'm going to try to interpret as an answer for this question. And that's it. And so you really narrow down, because otherwise you're dealing with millions of variations, and it's impossible to interpret stuff that way.
Yeah.
You really need to narrow it down. And so, you want to do that on a regular basis. So, and if you get that information, it can come through the meditation, through observation mind, through asking, and just having a regular dream. You might have, and it won't be the same thing. It'll just be symbolism that tells you, like, here's this aspect of what it is, and this is how you want to deal with it in order to, put it under control. Oh, okay. So the next time you go into lucidity, and you might actually go in seeking that scenario out, which a lot of times when people do that, they go right to that spot and they repeat that over again. But they do it with that conscious understanding of, like, I'm going to approach it this way and see what happens. You still may get munched, but you feel better about it. No, I'm just saying, you try something else. Maybe your interpretation was wrong of the symbolism that you got. You try something else, but you see, over time, the end result is more important than how you're getting there, right? Like the little bumps in the road. It's sort of like, entrepreneurs fail many, many times before they hit, usually, right? And it's like they learn something each time, and they put that into practice for the next time. And, it's tenacity that gets them through, endurance that gets them through, sacrifice that gets them through, and helps them to achieve whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, way more than getting exactly the right answer every time they go in. No, it's not that at all. You learn to be, you learn to have that type of endurance.
I think that's, that's such a subtle thing, but I definitely feel that. Like, that attitude where you're like, oh, I'm going to write down my dreams in the morning and then I'm going to interpret them. But there's this background attitude of like, well, I'm probably not going to get the interpretation right. So,
Right.
I'm probably not going to be very good at this, or, whatever that kind of like, what if I try 100 times at lucid dreaming, or even remembering dreams, and I fail, and that I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping that you don't do 100 times before you ask for a little extra help.
No,
maybe I just need a nuance tweak. It's so many times I can't. You've even witnessed this sometimes, right? Where it was just one little thing that was changed in the practice, and it just opened everything up for somebody.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, it's those nuances and it's not that you couldn't even figure it out. It's just that it's already been figured out. Why not ask?
Yeah.
Why not cut your learning curve down, right? And say, okay, it's like, I've done this 30 times and it's, I'm getting munched every time. What else can I try? Because I'm at my wit's end here,
Right.
I want to go past this point.
Right.
Should I just run away? Should I wait for another time to deal with this? There are all these scenarios, and it's like, if somebody can help you cut that down, then I think that's a good thing to do. It's not, I swear, it's not that, people just can't do this. Like I said, even with like the seeing or whatever, right? It's like people that really want to do it and are willing to sacrifice and make put the effort in, they do it. They do. It's inherent, right? It's something that we have. It's just latent, and we've been sold a bill of goods that says that those things aren't important, or they don't have much value or any value. And so you have to prove that out to yourself. How much value does it actually have? From how much value? What would you do? What would you sacrifice to have one day a week of pure hedonistic vacation, consistently every week? What would you pay for that? Or what would you do for that? What would you sacrifice for that? If somebody said, I'll trade you, one completely whatever you want to do, go on a jet plane, have breakfast in Paris, have lunch in New York, whatever, on my dime, for, every day, 1 day a week, would you give up television for that? Would you give up drinking for that? Would you give up, I don't know, wasting time on the internet for that? Would you do whatever? What level of sacrifice would that be for you? Would it be adequate exchange? And then, as we go forward with more of it, it's like it's even more. And that's just the adventure part. That's the sort of adventure / relaxation, vacation type of scenario, right? What if it had even more practical benefits than just making you feel good and excited to do it again the next week or whatever that would be, right? Would that finally sort of hit a neutral plane where it's like, oh yeah, I could do that, but maybe I just feel like staying home, or I don't know. I mean, it'd be a nice one to try out, right? but at the same time, it's kind of like, I think everybody hits that point if they do this long enough where they say, what else can I do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But it's not that doesn't have benefit. And it's not that it doesn't carry over, because those feelings carry over.
Those feelings of relaxation or fulfillment.
Adventure, fulfillment, hedonistic pleasure, whatever it is, that carries over into your next day. I mean, how could it not? It's hyper, right? It's like, who hasn't had a nightmare that scared the shit out of you? And the next day you were still kind of like jarring from it, right? It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to bed tonight. Oh, what if I have it again? Or, it's like, or you can't tell enough people like to spread the load, basically, right? And the same thing with like a very vivid dream, right? You want to tell anybody when you get up. It's like, even if it's just nonsensical, like it's hilarious or it's funny or whatever, it's like it stays with you, right? And so it colors your day. Well, I mean, what if you could, sort of take control of that and make that coloring really good for you, right? Always be in that sort of positive realm. I mean, that's what all the self-help guys are trying to do, right? It's like get you into that attitude of, being confident, being good, going out there, busting your ass, doing the things you need to do and trying to rev you up. And it's great while you're in the seminar, but then then you're back in your normal scenario and everybody sort of gets, reintegration depression, because it's like, I don't have my team here anymore. I don't have my other people of like mind. And you might keep up with email or whatever, but after a while, people are busy, they get back into their own routines, right? So this is something where, imagine anybody who's had that scenario and been to one of those events and they got all charged up and they were great for a few weeks or whatever, and then started to lose steam. Imagine being charged up like that every day, or let's say even 1 day a week you got to spend in that, that sort of environment, right. But even better, because you're actually doing everything. So you can't help but have that come through in your everyday life. Your relationships will get better. Your interactions. You're going to start thinking about, your health in a more profound way because you want to engage that even more. And if you're feeling lousy, if you're having indigestion or heartburn 6 days a week, it may be one of those days when you just can't get comfortable enough to relax to get in, right? And so, if you're having bad sleep to begin with, you're going to be too exhausted to wake up and do these things, or even engage it on a regular basis. So all of those things become more important, and you start taking active measures towards rectifying them.
So you think even the pursuit of lucid dreaming is practical because it requires you to take control and refine and better different aspects of yourself even from the beginning?
I think so.
To bring it to the level that we want to with this program, at least.
Yeah, but even if people only wanted to get to stage 1 and just be able to do it 1 day a week, mm-hmm. If that was their loftiest goal,
yeah,
which my experience is that nobody ever stays there. Everybody kind of wants to go farther than that afterwards, right? But let's say they just want to do that. Having the thrill of that, experiencing it, even semi-regularly, right? It's enough to drive you. It's such an outstanding experience. It drives you to, neutralize all of those aspects that may keep you from that, right? We're humans. We're hardwired this way. We move away from pain and move toward pleasure, right? So it's like, if that becomes a very pleasurable thing in your life, then, I mean, for all kinds of reasons, right? And it's like, and so my heartburn is keeping me up. I'm going to damn well eat differently or do something differently to take care of that shit, because I don't want it to interrupt this thing, maybe one good thing in my life that I can really enjoy one day a week if I'm really, disciplined about it or whatever. So I feel like, yeah, it can be a benefit to anybody just because of that. You have to sleep anyway.
Right, but to lucid dream on those nights, you have to you got to put
do
some
other
time
things.
in.
Well,
You
there's
gotta put
sacrifice
some,
and discipline to do that, but at the
Right.
same time, you could put that sacrifice and discipline into business, right? Which is very good, no problem. But what's the timing going to be like? How long are you going to have to do that? I mean, Bill Gates, 10 years, 10 dark years, right? Worked every single day, 16 hours a day, no days off, no holidays with family, nothing, in a garage.
So you're saying that that's what we're going to have to do?
No, I wouldn't do that. I don't care how damn good lucid dreaming is. So, but the idea, but people make sacrifices, and of course, the reward at the end of it seems to be commensurate with the amount of effort that it takes to do it, right? So it's like, that's a big deal, and so, it will drive us toward that. Like, before it was just like, I'm just up at night, everybody else is having insomnia too, or people are, whatever. In relationship to everybody else, it's sort of like, it makes it, kind of a flat plane, like, oh, you're just like everyone else. Of course, there's that part where everybody wants to be a little different than everybody else too. You want to be special in some way. This is one of those ways. And like I said, you have to sleep anyway. And if you're only getting rid of the stuff that is really not so good for you anyway, it seems like a no-brainer to me, really.
Yeah.
So, that's just my take on it.
Yeah, totally. One of the things I wanted to talk about as well is we did not introduce this part as one of the practices in the first week for all the people that are in the program, but it is something that we'll get into a bit more, building that lexicon of symbols, a dictionary, a language with our own
Which
subconscious,
is your own.
so that we can understand our dreams, lucid or not, better.
Right.
But that practice of asking yourself a question when you go to sleep at night, right? You've talked about that for years, okay? So, and I gotta be honest, I've only done that super half-assed. Sometimes I've really tried, but I have to say that that practice, in combination with writing your dreams down and getting more disciplined about doing that, produced a really cool experience last night. And so I'm asking myself this question last night, and I was really like, it wasn't like just asking a question with the attitude of like, well, maybe I'll get some information about this, or maybe this will help clarify things for me, or who knows, I can't understand my half sensical dreams anyway. So asking myself, whatever.
Right.
This was like, I really want to know. So, I woke up after, I think, one sleep cycle, like an hour and a half after I fell asleep. I woke up and I had this short but very vivid dream. And what struck me about the dream was that the progression of events was much clearer than usual. There was basically only one color in the whole dream. The geometry of the space was very clear. All the interactions, even the sense of what some of the people in the dream meant to me was much more clear because of their actions toward me in the dream. And so it was like, so cool. I mean, I woke up and I'm writing it down, and as I'm writing it down, I'm like, oh, damn, this asking yourself a question and really wanting to know. It's like, it was amazing to me that it didn't just, it actually changed the quality. it changed the quality of the dream that I had.
So even if you're not getting the symbols, right? It's like they're so clear.
Right.
It's like there's no ambiguity there.
It's like I put in such a clear question,
That's it.
so I'm getting back a more clear response.
Right. That's exactly it.
Right.
That's exactly it. And you had a little juice to it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you really want to know. Like that, really sends it, deeper than what it would if it's just sort of like this, because your subconscious is sort of interpreting that too, right? It knows it's you, right? So it knows, like, it's like, whatever. It's like, oh, then you don't really want to know. So I can just throw anything out there and it's not a big deal. If you really want to know, it will make it much more clear. You may not interpret the symbols correctly in the beginning,
right?
Until you have some experience doing that, right? And you've made your lexicon of symbols and what they mean for you. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't come in more clearly. You can really, like you said, you can write it down in all of these aspects that are important to you, the geometry of the place and the color and the this, and it's all very clear, right? And it wasn't just like, even with the color, it wasn't predominantly things in the room that were these colors. It was like the whole thing was this color. It doesn't get more clear than that, okay?
Right.
We know what realm we're in. If you have the same correspondences, right? But those are the things that make it like you've taken questions out of interpretation now. You've refined the parameters of the question and you've refined the parameters of the answers. They've got to fit these boxes, and when they do, you're much more likely to get get a more accurate view of the answer than you would if you didn't, right? It's just a jumble. You continue in that loop of, it's not that important because I can't really understand what it is, and it's just craziness and whatever. So, yeah, refine the question, you'll get a more refined answer.
Yeah. So that was very cool. And the other, one of the other exercises that we did this week was actually getting a sense of our schedule, right? And trying to map out more clearly, like, how exactly am I spending my time every day? Like, what are my routines on different days, and how does that go? And so I said to you in this video when we were, talking about, not only does this routine seem boring to do for the purposes of something very exciting like lucid dreaming, and I'm afraid everyone's going to be bored and not want to do it or whatever. And I'm like, whatever. But I also expressed to you that, like, I have this trepidation about, like, even doing it, And
so should we close now before you have to reveal what?
No, I'm getting into it, man. This is it. I'm laying everything bare because we're making this happen. We're gonna make it happen for me and for everybody else. So it's like we gotta get through all this stuff. So, but the thing. So I think I did it that night right after we finished recording all the segments for the program, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get to it, And I'm writing down my schedule, what I think that I do on weekdays generally. And like I said, I had trepidation about doing it. I'm like, why would I be afraid of writing down what I do? I generally know, like, what I do. But the thing that struck me was I started to write it out, and I wrote out not just what I do, but I started to write out, like, how I do it, how I engage my work in the middle of the day. So like I get up, I do my stuff, whatever. I work for however many hours for a big chunk of the day. And but I wrote out, like, I work super, like, aggressively, and because I'm working so aggressively and with this attitude of, like, I got to get as much done as I possibly can, I have this sensation of, like, kind of ramping myself up internally, which produces this kind of, like, anxiousness. And and if I'm working at the computer or whatever, it's like I'm doing, but I'm sitting and I'm ramping myself up, and then I'm like, okay. So I keep going and I'm right. So I noted that, but I didn't think anything of it because I'm like, yeah, that's been the norm for a little while anyway.
Sure.
And then I looked at, I'm like, okay, well, I meditate in the evenings, and part of the meditation process that I noted about, my experience was that I spend like 20 minutes just kind of stepping myself down from that kind of
Fever pitch
of ramping myself up.
Yep.
And it was like, and then I started to do the multiplication, right? You know, it's like 20 minutes a day of my meditation, which I could be spending on other things. I just spend trying to calm down from having, you know,
so that I can
produce
do them.
this other, you know, so I can do
Right.
the meditation or whatever it is, or do the exercise. And I was like, damn, if I could only, you know, be more conscious throughout that time that I'm working in a way that keeps me hooked into the things that I try to produce in my meditations, you know, which is more equanimity of thought and, you know, a balanced approach to my work, or even clarity of mind on what I'm working on, then not only would I probably be more productive, but I'd also not be wasting 20 minutes every day, you know?
Right. And I mean, you know, and that's also without ramping down the enthusiasm and energy, physical energy that you need to do what you need to do. Right?
No, this is more like...
Right. I get it. So it's like, yeah, there's ways to do that for sure, and tap into that, right? So it's like really short methods, like 1 minute a piece, you know, and you just put it in like every half hour or whatever. You take 1 minute every half hour, and that will eliminate
of meditation.
You like just in a technique to hook into, you know, where your meditations bring you when you do that relaxation part, you know, to get to the meditative stage, right? I mean, it's not unusual to have to, you know, ramp yourself down, relax the body, do whatever for a good amount of time before you do any kind of meditation, right?
Right.
But it does get quicker over time, and one of the things that will help is being able to sort of hook into that state, or tap on it, ping on it, you know,
Right.
like radar, every half hour or so.
Well, what it really reminded me of is how you're always talking about these chaotic aspects, right, of ourselves, and how we're trying to put them under control.
Right.
And, you know, one of the things that we talk about, and I know this may be out of context for somebody that hasn't listened to you or whatever very much, but you know, that when we identify an aspect of ourselves that's kind of, you know, off leash, you know, or you know, affecting us in a, you know, a negative way, or producing chaos, where, you know, in some aspect.
Right.
And when we identify that, we have that attitude of like, I see you, I've identified you, I see that that's a pattern that's not working for me.
You're not hidden anymore.
Yeah. But that's exact. You know, and so of course I linked that back to the trepidation that I was feeling before I did the exercise. It's like, well, no wonder there is a part of me that doesn't want to do the exercise, because I know that this exercise is going to produce greater clarity, and that clarity is going to, you know, give me the opportunity to, you know, not feed that part of myself so much.
Put it under control, right?
Put it under control.
And it's like, it doesn't want to be off the leash. I mean, you know, it does want to be off the leash, right? It doesn't want to be penned in.
Right.
It wants to continue what it does most, right? All of those things do. I mean, just like control wants to produce more control, right?
Right.
And, you know, order wants to produce more order. That's sort of the way things manifest, right? So it's not unusual, but it's true. I mean, when we, you know, those things that I don't want to do the most are the things that I try to get to first, because I know there's the most juice in those, right? It's like, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why I would be, you know, thinking that this would be a bad thing. Out of all the stuff that we do, it seems to be the least, like you said, boring. You know, it seems to be the least really affected. You know, when I think of lucid dream, I'm not thinking of scheduling, other than what time do I have to wake up at night to try, or, you know, those types of schedulings, but not like, what do you do every day? Oh my God, what are you going to do with this? Well, you're going to see what we do with it.
Right.
We're rearranging to show you where you have blocks of time that you can get other things done and save time for, you know, the practices to move you into that state, right? And to, you know, and then how you, you know, scheduling your time for actual attempts at lucid dreaming. All of that is just to show you, you know, here's the baseline and how we can adjust to show you that for those people that feel like they don't have any time to do this, it's the best place to start is you know, showing you all the time that you do have. And, you know,
and that was
then
the
it becomes
thing
a
too,
sacrifice, right?
That, you know, it's like, I've heard even Jordan Peterson talk about this, where he was saying that, if you take out, like I said, 20 minutes, and you know that you spend 20 minutes a day doing something, and then you start to multiply that. It's like the TV or wasting time on the internet or whatever it is. It's like when you actually look at the math of like 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, and then you look at that for a week and a month and a year, and you say this is something
you want to
that
shred that paper.
Yeah, this is something that I do every day for this amount of time.
Sees it.
And then when you add up all those hours, it's It's crazy. It's a shock to your system in a way. You're like, holy crap.
I mean, that's part of being, sort of brutally honest with yourself, right? I mean, it's like those people that go through that exercise, they see that and they go, oh, no.
I'm like
it's
thinking
like you start looking like you're a spy, right? You're like trying to get stuff out of the Pentagon or something. You're like going to shred it, eat it, burn it, do whatever so that nobody knows you have that.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap, that many hours? No, that can't be right. Let me recalculate.
Like, damn it, man. I thought we wanted to promote lucid dreaming for people, not scare them away. It's like...
Well, it's, I think it will promote it, only because it's, you have to take a practical attitude toward it too. I mean, it's not like, how many things can people just keep adding to their schedule before it just becomes bogged down? None of them get the attention they need. And, you're just wasting energy, right? Because it's just like too little for too many things. It's like, it may be moving, but it's moving at a glacier pace, right? You want to eliminate a bunch of that stuff and focus it all on this one thing that, the premise is that if you achieve this goal and it's something that really is very practical for you, that it's going to enhance actually everything else that you do. So you're going to have a new relationship to even the things that you've sacrificed, right? Like let's say you give up TV, or let's say you give up, we find a way to get you to ramp down 1 minute every half hour so that, when you go to do your meditations, it takes you 5 minutes to relax.
Yeah, just putting myself in a more balanced state throughout the day.
Right, you have that extra time, right? So it's like it's going to make a new relationship for you even with that, right? So it's like...
Make a new relationship with what?
With those aspects that you've sacrificed. Like a lot of people think, well, I'll give this up, sort of like Lent, right? It's like I give up for 40 days what I like the most and I get some, I don't know, some benefit from that. Some sacrifice, right? It represents sacrifice. So, but people go right back, they can't wait for Easter to come, because it's like then on that day, they get to have that stuff again, chocolate, whatever it is, wine, whatever you give up, right? So, but the relationship doesn't really change. It doesn't have the desired effect for most people, like that idea of sacrifice, right? What are they learning? And it's just something to do. It's sort of a rote thing. And, but I think that when you have, these experiences at the end, in this case, lucid dreaming, when you come out and you see what that sacrifice has produced for you, the feedback loop is that, it changes your attitude about those things, and you start going through your schedule and you look for other places to nix things that aren't good for you. It's a weird thing, but it does happen. And because they start going like, if that's, the equivalent trade, if I get rid of more of this, will that extend this and make it even better? Will I be able to get more time there? Will that have even more time in the lucid dream? And then in my life, I have a better lifetime. I have a better life experience as well, right? I have more confidence, I have more joy in my life because I know I can get in there when I need to, or at least, let's say, semi-regularly anyway, right? The whole idea of this is to be able to produce a regular interval of lucid dreaming, right? So it's not just like a one shot and you're done. But that continued access and exploration in that realm and learning more about yourself and building your confidence and everything else that goes along with that, just feeling better. It's that carries. How could it not carry through? I mean, you've had things happen, and let's say you have something happen, maybe not even in the same day. The day before, something wonderful happened to you. Great. It's like the next day, even the things that normally would piss you off have almost no effect on you. You just kind of go, okay. And you're like, you can't get out of your happy zone, right? So it's like, and it moves through. And doesn't the day go faster? Doesn't the stuff go easier? I mean, you bring more energy to the table with whatever you're doing. Things seem to move smoother. It's a correlation, right? We can't definitively say it's a causation. And I think that's where people get mixed up, right? It's a correlation. It's sort of like that old adage, it doesn't matter if angels and demons are real, the universe acts as if they are. It's like, it doesn't matter how you frame it. Look at the end results. If you're producing a better life, use whatever tools you have that are available to you that you can use, to make that happen. I mean, I think you're worth it. I think everybody's worth it. I mean, some of these other ways are just, in general, like just other things for self-development, which I wholeheartedly, am for. Whether it's, Tony Robbins or whatever, it's business or relationship oriented or whatever, health oriented, whatever, right? Just making yourself a better, more well-rounded person or an expert in your territory of area of interest, whatever it is. I think those things are all great. And, but I think that, a lot of times it's limited to those people who have, if it's Tony, I mean, you're going to spend $5,000 for a ticket to go to, not counting anything else, to go to a seminar, for him, maybe just a 3-day seminar. And, it's a wonderful event, but, then, not everybody has those funds. Not everybody has those resources. And yeah, there's sacrifice and all of that.
Can I go to a Tony Robbins event in my lucid dream?
Yeah, you could do that. If you have the control to do it, sure. But, it's one of those things where, I feel like what I'm most excited about this is that, it's something that everybody can do if they're willing to, put the effort in. And you don't need a hell of a lot of resources to be able to do it. Like I said, you have to sleep every night anyway. You have 7 nights a week that you can actually potentially, get in. And then once you do that, that's all it takes is that one time and you're hooked. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to let it go after that. When you know that what you did consciously produced that and that you can do it again, there's no coaxing necessary. Then it's just going to be refining. What else can I do to make it more consistent? What else can I do to stay there longer? What else can I do to, then it becomes, effort in that direction. But you're seeing so much response on the other side within your life and all those parameters that, what's the harm? Mm-hmm. I can think of a lot of scenarios that I would sacrifice to produce that effect in all areas of my life. If there was no such thing as lucid dreaming, if there was no other avenue like that, I could think of, but somebody was saying, I could give this up or I could sacrifice this in order to achieve these things. People do it all the time, right? Entrepreneurs are another good example, business people, anybody who's working toward a degree or whatever, it's like they restrict, hopefully, some of their partying or whatever in order to produce the effect.
Why do you think, I know that you talk about this with things in general, and you've touched on it in other places, but I noticed that since we got on the call today, you've really made that idea of sacrifice primary in kind of all the things that you've talked about. And is there a reason for that?
You don't get anything without sacrifice. Nobody does. In one way or another. I'm not saying all sacrifices are good, but you don't get it for nothing.
Yeah,
and definitely not good things.
But that's just definitely a really different tenor of conversation than
it's realistic.
Right. But even lucid dreaming books or programs, it's
just
they're
do this
looking
and do
at
this and this.
And of course, I don't know for anybody that's on the call list today, if you haven't yet. If you're in our program, of course, you've probably watched the first video of the program where we go over the 4 stages. But if you haven't seen it, you can see it on YouTube. It's just search for the 4 stages of lucid dreaming, and you can watch the goals that we want to achieve for this program. Like I said, getting in once a week, but then getting in whenever you want, and then being able to stay there as long as you want, being able to produce whatever situation or scenario you want and play, like you said,
Sure.
running it over and over again.
Sure.
So do you feel like that's part of why you're, kind of harping on the sacrifice thing? Because we're saying like, it's not just about, doing it not just doing it like in whatever way it manifests for you, but you're trying to make the point that everybody can do this and everybody can learn to do it consistently and with this kind of control. I mean, we're putting it forth that I'm going to be able to do that, and everybody else that wants to learn can. So do you think that that's part of why you're starting out with the sacrifice thing from the beginning with this kind of coaching call? Because it's kind of like, well, if you want it to be an aspect of your life or a tool in your life that actually makes your life better and something that you can do consistently, then it's going to require sacrifice.
Well, I think just getting into experience, just finding out if it's real, even if you believe it, but you've never had the experience consciously, then, is it worth the sacrifice of whatever, however long, let's say, maybe 90 days or whatever, to just have a lucid moment, just to sort of get in there and know that it's possibility.
Right.
After that, there's, you don't need a lot of extra impetus to keep going, right? But, it takes time, right? And it's like, we wouldn't think that, nobody thinks that retiring early, let's say, something very practical. Retiring early doesn't include any kind of sacrifice, right? You don't spend now and you save it so that later you don't have to worry about things and you don't have to work either. Or maybe you reduce your work down to part-time or whatever it is, right? Different scenarios for different people, but there's sacrifice. For some people, money just runs right through them, right? And it's like not out of necessity, although there are those people too, but just out of want, right? Just pure desire. And, why do you think they put all that junk in right at the cash registers? It's sort of like, it's scarcity, right? Like, here's your last chance to get this trashy magazine before you walk out the door, or, here's this last chance to get a candy bar. Aren't you hungry? Don't you want some chocolate? Or whatever, right? And so impulse people, right? So I think that, and we all have those tendencies. We all have them. It's, again, one of those chaotic forces that you have to put under control, right? And so, and there are ways to do that. But I think it's just a good overall message to get out there, which we've sort of lost. From the time that, people had started coming to this country, right? And they had really strong work ethics, and they knew that they had to work long hours, and they knew they had to, in order to get ahead, they had to do more, and they had to give up some other things in order to do that. Some people left their damn families in other countries to come here and set up their household first.
So if you want to get to a better place.
If you want to get to a better place, yeah. You don't keep doing the same things that you're doing now.
Which is
because what you're doing now is producing exactly what you have. Which
is part of the clarity of looking at what you do in a day and that scheduling aspect of the first
Exactly. So, and hopefully, the desire to do that, and then some glimpses of it manifesting for you will be enough impetus to really start scouring. My experience is that people that have that experience, they're actually more brutal on themselves than I would be, as far as like
what experience?
Like having a lucid experience and then going like, holy shit, it actually is real. I'm going to take everything out that, I'm going to become a hermit, it's like, so I could do that. And I'm like, slow down, it's like, you don't have, it's like, it's not like you're, the idea is to build a completely better life, right? So it's not about just like becoming a lucid dreaming junkie, right? So it's like, I want it to carry through.
Right. And that was one of the fears actually that came up for me, was like, that expressed itself was like, if you become so infatuated with this other aspect of your life, are you going to let parts of this life slide because they don't seem as important as like this other experience you get to have all the time and, whatever. Do you think that's, I mean, it seems ridiculous. I mean, even when I express it out loud, it's like, yeah, well, that's stupid because, when you're in your engaged in your physical life, obviously it's like, you want to do well, you want to have good relationships and good health. That's never going to go away. But it's interesting that, just the idea that it could, change your orientation of values in a way that, well, what if that's not good for you? Like, I don't know. Do you have anything to...
I mean, I think that it will, but my general observation is that things that are, because what we're talking about is addiction, where something becomes so high, right, that you're willing to toss away everything to do that. But a lot of times, I mean, from my experience, is that addictions tend to be something that dull you down, right? Most drugs, alcohol, those types of things, gambling, whatever, they dull you down, right? They make the rest of your life black and white. And so, there's no reason to engage black and white photo, right? It's like there's nothing bringing you to that, right? So it's sort of like numbing you to the world. It's not really engaging the world on a high level, So, and I don't feel like lucid dreaming does that to any degree because it's making things more bright. It's making things, showing you, it's not, I can't wait till I get back there. I mean, there's obviously that calling, right? I can't wait to see what's going to happen tonight or what I'm going to do tonight or I have this plan tonight, however you approach it. But, it's sort of, because again, going back to the beginning, right? You feel so good when you get out of there. If you've had even if you've had a nasty experience, right?
Sure.
You're alive, right? You feel more alive. There's something in you that's like generating energy, right? It's like you're engaged. You're not only engaged, the engagement on a level within your dreams is so strong, and that carries through. Again, there's no negation of feeling. It's a heightened state of feeling. So again, just like, can you imagine bouncing out of a Tony Robbins and then going right into work? You'd be like, if you were just the guy that just walked to your cubicle and sat down and just started doing your work quietly and was very efficient or whatever, you'd be coming in there, you'd be like, hey, Joe, how's it going? Bring it in. It's like, maybe. I'm not saying it changes your personality completely, but you're going to feel like you're overflowing with this, extra energy, and you're going to be looking for ways to put it to practical use, right? So, you're doing nice things for your family. You're engaging them on a high level because, what carries over from lucid dreams is that you have to be conscious, you have to be attentive, you have to be engaged on a very high level so you don't get just sucked into a regular dream where it just becomes chaos and whatever, right? You have to be focused. And so, you bring that excitement into your waking world, right? Your engagement with your kids is better, with your wife is better, or your husband, or, it's like, and your engagement at work is like, you start feeling like, what could I do that would make this even better? You mean
you start thinking about things more in those terms?
Yeah, you just start thinking, it's like, I can do my job, I'm doing my job really well, but what could I do with this job that would actually engage it in such a way that it would produce a better phenomena for the company or even for my division or whatever it is? Like, how could I do that? How could I organize it differently so that it would have more impact? And you're looking for that high impact in every area. It's like, oh, do I go for the normal burger and fries or do I switch over to a salad once a week, to start with? Nobody says you got to like crush it on the first time, right? So, you're doing, because there's plenty of things that can be cathartic and are, right? So there's no reason to bring on catharsis when you don't need to, right? It's just a dumb idea. So, it is. It's just a dumb idea. So, but you bring that enthusiasm and high focus to the rest of your waking experience, and it should, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose. Is like, here's a peak experience once a week. How will that translate into peak? You're gonna, because the same brain system is functioning for you. Because when we, here's the thing, right? It's like, we know from a standard, testing that's been done for a long time, right? Like when you measure brain response when somebody's doing a certain activity. If they're thinking about doing that certain activity and they're recording them again, brain function wise, it's almost indistinguishable from one to the next. So what do you think's happening when, to your brain and the brain chemicals, when you're in a lucid dream and you're experiencing it on that heightened level? That stuff is flowing, right? The dopamine receptors are going crazy, right? You're dumping all this stuff in there. That's addictive, in that way. And so, but what's addictive? Just getting back to the lucid dream, or, those experiences of having high intensity experiences? In my, experience, it's that. I'm looking for those during the day too. Like, your brain's searching them out because it loves dopamine. There's nothing that it loves better than that. So, it's the cocaine of the brain, right? So it's like, it just goes, right? There's nothing that is stronger than that, within our brains. So, it's constantly looking for them. I would say, if anything's addictive about it, it's, that you're trying to get more out of your life than you were prior. You're trying to make all of your life experiences at that, that saturated level of good, And so, I hate to even use the word good because it's so low compared to...
Right.
But great and awesome are used too much, so it's like
so
we're relegated to good. Yeah. So, but that's what I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I think we'll wrap it up.
Great.
That's gives me some good, not only motivation, and certainly motivation for everyone else as well, and some good reminders in there. And
did you have any last questions about, like, what you've had for results so far and what you need to tweak in order to bring that about? Or
I don't know. I can't really think of...
we answered a lot.
Yeah.
You went through it step by step.
Yeah.
Which I think is just, again, it's awesome that you're doing this, because, it's one thing to train people to do something, right? Or bring an example up here and there, but to actually see somebody go through the process and how, the triumphs and the defeats, and how to tweak it to get it in the right zone. That's just super valuable. It's like very few people. Even if somebody has a mentorship, there's not like you go, can I let my 3 friends watch me go through this, so they can just sort of get it by osmosis, or at least see that I get trounced every day, and that, I get these little victories here and there. And, it's like, so maybe that will motivate them to do something more as well. So I really feel like, it's an awesome thing that you're doing, because it won't all be pretty.
Right. It is, it's exciting, but it's also terrifying.
Yes, and it should be. It's a good balance.
Yeah. But I think that in terms of the practices themselves, it's like, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on them, and they're moving, and it's clear, from having done these things for a week so far, that not only are they producing more clear dreams through their dream recall, but also, had a lucid moments. So it's like, okay, well, for me at this stage, like, that's great. And they didn't last very long at all, but it's like, okay, well, but even that gives me, confirms for me that what you're saying about, like, even just putting more attention on that area of your life starts to build up energy around it. That doesn't always have to be so much, force and whatever, but even just thinking about it more often and putting more attention on it begins to stimulate more activity in that area. And so that's a very cool confirmation.
We are what we think about most of the time. The more effort we put into it, the more it's going to produce things in that realm, right? So, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, great. I guess the one thing in general that we can say is that, this past week, from the practices that you've changed and done, and the things you've stuck to, has definitely changed your experience for the week.
Yeah, dramatically.
From the week prior, or weeks or months prior.
Absolutely.
That's what we need to hear.
Yeah, and it's cool to also see that even not being lucid, that even bringing those questions in can actually, like, it's almost like, okay, even really having a question in mind and really wanting to know can actually change the quality and content of my dreams, which kind of gives me this sense of, like,
Well, there's an untapped resource.
I have, yeah, there's an untapped resource, but like, oh, I actually can affect this territory in a way that I didn't think that I could before. It's
Right.
always felt like, just kind of
Right.
haphazard and chaotic and
Sure.
whatever, so
Can't understand it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, good.
So it's good, good so far.
Yeah, great start. No, it's a great start.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very good.
Cool. I'm just gonna double check the. Cool. All right. Well, Lori said she wanted to ask a question about images and determining what they mean. Lori, we're going to be going over that probably in the next part of the program, so we're going to save it for that time. And anybody who has joined us today, if you want to learn more about this program, and just go to 2besilent.com, number 2, letter B, silent.com, and you can learn more about it there. All the information is up. So
absolutely. And Lori, we'll address that because Lori's one of our members. So, make sure you bring it up at the question and answer on Sunday, because we'll be able to go over that, and I can explain it a little bit more broadly.
Right. Yeah. And exactly. As much as this has been, like a coaching session for me and an inspirational
Well, that's what it's supposed to be.
Everybody, for all of our members, we'll see you guys in a week on Sunday night, and, bring all your questions and stuff so that we can hear about your experiences as well, and take it from that perspective too. So, because that'll be very illuminating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well,
all right, dude.
Thanks, man.
All right. Good.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. And, keep in touch, and check out our website. And for our members, we'll see you guys in a week, and we look forward to it.
Absolutely.
See ya.
Bye.